All right. Good afternoon, and we are going to go over the Child Development Associate social chapter in your book. We missed everybody in class on Monday, but I think we can get through this chapter pretty quickly and learn a little bit extra about attachment theory and how children should interact with you and each other. So the objectives for this chapter are to understand the social development of preschool children, to think about how you can use your classroom environment to encourage positive social interactions, how you can support children's play, how you can encourage children's positive relationships, and foster pro-social behavior. Social development is the process of learning the skills and strategies used to build relationships with, get along with, and enjoy the company of others. So, a survey in 2017 about social emotional skills in early childhood and workforce development said that more than 60% of business decision makers say it's more difficult to find job candidates that have good social skills than candidates that have good technical skills. Too often, that means that employees can't communicate well with each other, with customers, and can't collaborate to solve problems. Preschool social development encompasses having strong reciprocal relationships with adults. Reciprocal means that it's back and forth. The child has a strong relationship with the adult has a strong relationship with the child. There's a potential for cooperative play. Cooperative meaning playing together for a common goal, doing something together. Sociodramatic play. Sociodramatic play is when children are playing together and take on roles and try out things they've seen grown-ups do in their environments. So in the house area, this could be that the children are playing and they say, okay, you be the mommy and you be the baby and you be the kitty cat, and they work it out together and try out being the mommy, try out being the kitty cat, and see what's involved in those different roles. Pro-social behaviors. Pro-social is the opposite of antisocial. We usually hear the word antisocial in normal speech in the US. However, pro-social is not used very often. Pro-social means that you are encouraging and doing positive social behaviors, such as sharing, taking turns. Showing empathy. Empathy is different than sympathy. Empathy is that you can put yourself in somebody's shoes and imagine and feel what they're feeling. Sympathy is where you just feel sorry for somebody for feeling a certain way. Social development is influenced by the culture, family structure, relationships, language skills, and community of the child. Some things are considered socially appropriate in one culture, while if you did the same thing in another culture, it would be considered rude. Take a few minutes, open your textbook to page 384 through 386. There are some tips there for encouraging positive social interactions. I'm going to give you a few minutes, read through that section, and think about things that you already do with your children and things that you would like to do with your children. What are some things that you haven't tried yet that sound like a good idea? Pause the video here to do your reading, and then come back, and if you're sitting near somebody, discuss it. All right, I hope you enjoyed reading that section and you found some good ideas for encouraging social behavior in your classroom. Now let's talk about Mildred Parton and her 6 stages of children's play. So in your book, it does go into each of these in particular. I do have a video as well that I'd like to show you. But real quick, let's just talk through these. The first level over here is unoccupied play. That is the kind of play where a child is learning how to use their body perhaps, and they're just moving around and feeling the sensations of their body moving around. It could also be that a child is just wandering around the classroom. They're not really sure what the materials do, and they're not really feeling going to explore and find out. The next one is solitary play. The next one is solitary play. Solitary play is when a child finds something to play with and they'll just sit down or stand up and play with it by themselves. Solitary means by oneself. So they're playing by themselves. I'm sure at times you have things that you do for solitary play. Maybe you do a puzzle, or maybe you play a game on your telephone during a break, and that is solitary play. The next level of play is onlooker play. This is frequently seen when children are moved into a new classroom environment, or perhaps you have a child that doesn't speak the same language as the other children in the classroom. This is where the child will stand right outside where the play is happening and observe. They're observing to try to figure out what are the rules of this game, how do I join, do I even want to be a part of this game? How are these children playing together? Onlooker play. The next is parallel play. Parallel play is, if you think of a pair of parallel lines, they run next to each other, but they never touch. And that's the same thing with parallel play. So if you will, imagine 2 children sitting in the block area. They both have their own stack of blocks. They're sharing the area, but they're both building their own tower, and they're not really noticing each other at all. The next level is associative play. And we'll go back to the block area example. You have the 2 children playing in blocks, and this time, every once in a while, one of them will look up, say, "Wow, that's an interesting tower you made. Oh, I see you're using your blocks like this on the bottom. Do you want one of my blocks to do that? Oh, could I use one of your blocks?" They're not really playing together, but they're noticing each other and sometimes sharing materials. And the highest level of play is cooperative play. That is, if the 2 children in the block area decided, let's make a tower together. Let's share the materials and work together to create to reach a common goal, to create a common playscape, play opportunity. All right, I'm going to pause this, and we're going to watch a short video on the 6 stages of children's play.
Social skills play a large role in sense of well-being and in school success. Mildred Parton documented that children go through consistent and progressive stages of social play. Knowledge of the stages of social play can inform intervention planning. The first stage is unoccupied and is represented by the seemingly random movements of an infant. In the second stage, solitary play, children play alone and do not attempt to engage with others. During the third stage, onlooker, children watch others but do not try to join in the play. In the fourth stage, parallel play, children play side by side and may use the same materials but do not play together. In associative play, the fifth stage, children may play together but do not show extended collaboration. In the final stage, children collaboratively develop complex play activities.
So why should we know the stages of children's play? Well, as an educator, you can see some children perhaps that are having difficulty entering play situations and identify what stage of play they're currently in. So let's say you have a child that is experiencing onlooker play, and that's how they're playing in the classroom, by watching on the outside, on the outskirts of play. If you wanted to support that child in moving to the next step of play, you could go sit with the child and get some similar materials to the children who are already playing and invite the child to do a parallel play next to the other group. And you can support that child going forward into associative play by giving them short scripts or ideas of what they could say as they're playing next to the other children, working slowly up to cooperative play. That is much more gentle than jumping straight from onlooker play to trying to support the child fully cooperating into a play activity. All right, pretend play, which is mostly in like your home area or outside or in your block area. When the children are playing together and taking on different roles in imaginary situations, using their imaginations. Pretend play is where cognitive development and social experiences come together. Children plan out their play and carry out their plans. When I say plan out their play, there's usually at least one child in the group that is the leader and will help structure the play by assigning roles, saying, oh, you're the mommy, you're the baby, you're going to be the firefighter, you're going to be the doggy that's going to get saved out of the building. Whatever it is, they usually try to assign roles and control the script, and then the other children can either choose to accept that or assert themselves and provide a problem-solving opportunity where everybody gets to have an opinion on what their roles should be. And then lastly, pretend play helps children understand and experiment with social roles. I'm sure most of you have at one time or another seen a child experiment with being the teacher and holding a little class on the carpet with some of your materials and pretend that they are you. So they're trying out the role of teacher and trying to see things through the teacher's perspective. So for children's play, children will use social cues, social circumstances to learn. They read other people's expressions and body language to figure out how to respond. So think about this as an adult. If you are giving suggestions during a meeting or during a chat with somebody and you realize that they're becoming angry due to their expressions or body language, you may change the way that you are presenting information. However, if they're smiling at you and nodding, you assume that they appreciate what you're saying and you say more. For emotional self-regulation, this is really important when playing socially because children need to begin to control their behavior and impulses in order to get along and to meet those goals of cooperation. If the children are working together to build a tower and somebody has poor emotional self-regulation, if somebody puts a block in a spot they don't like, they might just knock over the tower and stomp off. In pretend play, children learn more about how others live and work in the world. It's not just their own social experience which is explored, but the social experience of their friends. So if a few children in the group have a mother at home, they can share the role of mommy with the child that doesn't have a mother at home. Settings can be added to pretend play based on children's lives and experiences. You could add menus based off of where children live in the community or what foods they like. You could add dress-up clothes based off of their interest in, maybe they're interested in being firefighters, and you could add some things to pretend play that would expand their exploration of firefighter. It's great when you can take children's input or children's ideas on board when you're creating and adding to the pretend play area. Fantasy scenarios can also foster children's imaginations and creativity. So fantasy could be, we're playing dinosaurs, we're playing princess, we are playing unicorns. All those things are fun, and not everything that is pretended has to be rooted in the children's lived experience. Pretend play helps scaffold children's learning and engages them in their learning process. And it provides more opportunities for children to come up with ideas and direct their own play. Young children who grow up experiencing secure attachments and positive relationships with early childhood educators are more likely to experience future academic success, have better future social relationships, get along better with peers, develop empathy, make friends easily, and are less likely to either become bullies or to become the victim of bullies. Secure attachments is something that we have discussed as a theme throughout our CDA experience. Let's take about 10 minutes and watch this video about attachment theory and why children need those secure attachments in order to make these social gains.
The attachment theory argues that a strong emotional and physical bond to one primary caregiver in our first years of life is critical to our development. If our bonding is strong and we are securely attached, then we feel safe to explore the world. We know that there is always that safe base which we can return to any time. If our bond is weak, we feel insecurely attached. We are afraid to leave or explore a rather scary-looking world because we are not sure if we can return. People who are securely attached are said to have greater trust, can connect to others, and as a result are more successful in life. Insecurely attached people tend to mistrust others, lack social skills, and have problems forming relationships. There is one type of secure attachment, and there are 3 types of insecure attachments: anxious ambivalent, anxious avoidant, and anxious disorganized. In responses to distress, the first 3 react organized, while the last acts disorganized. To understand the theory better, let's look at Mr. and Mrs. Smith, who have 4 children: Luca, Anne, Joe, and Amy. The Smiths are lovely parents who cuddle, make frequent eye contact, speak warmly, and are always there for their kids. But one day, Mr. Smith falls very sick and dies. For Mrs. Smith, life now becomes very difficult. She spends all day working, while at the same time trying to care for her children. An impossible task. At 6 years of age, Luca's brain is for the most part developed, his character strong and his worldview shaped. The new situation does not affect him much. He knows there is still always Mum, his safe haven. He feels securely attached. Later, he turns into a trusting and optimistic young man. His self-image is positive. Anne, who is 3, has problems coping with the new lack of attention. To Anne, her mother now acts unpredictably. She is anxious about their relationship and as a result becomes clingy. To get her mum's attention, she has to raise her emotional state and scream. When her mum finally reacts with a predictable response, she herself acts ambivalent and doesn't show her true feelings. Later in life, others think Anne is unpredictable or moody. Her self-image is less positive. Her attachment style is anxious ambivalent. 2-year-old Joe spends his days with his uncle, who loves him, but thinks that a good education means being strict. If little Joe shows too much emotion or is too loud, his uncle gets angry and sometimes punitive. This scares Joe. He learns that to avoid fear, he has to avoid showing his feelings, also in other situations. As an adult, he continues this strategy and has problems entering relationships. His image of himself is rather negative. His attachment is anxious avoidant. Amy, who is just 1 year old, gets sent to a nursery. The staff there is poorly trained, overworked, and often very stressed. Some are outright abusive. Amy therefore becomes anxious of the very people she seeks security from, a conflict which totally disorganizes her ideas about love and safety. As she is experiencing fear without resolution, she tries to avoid all social situations. As an adult, she thinks of herself as unworthy of love. Her self-image is very negative. Her attachment is anxious, disorganized. Our attachment is formed in the very first years of our lives, a time when we are too young to communicate our anxiety and as a result can experience high levels of stress. Then our adrenal gland, an organ sitting on top of our kidneys, produces the stress hormones adrenaline and cortisol. The heart rate increases, the blood pressure goes up, and we become alert. If that happens frequently, it is called toxic stress. Toxic because it impairs the development of a child's brain and weakens the immune system. In embryos or at a very young age, toxic stress can even switch the expressions of genes, which can affect our health many decades later. By simulating a strange situation, we can assess an attachment style already by the age of 1. To do this, we let the child play with their mother for a few minutes inside a room. Then the child is left alone. The key moment is the child's reaction when her mother returns. Securely attached children first usually hug their mother, then can calm down and eventually get back to playing. Insecurely attached children can be ambivalent and avoidant. Some can't stop crying or refuse to continue playing. The long-term effects of our attachment in the early years are well documented. Using the theory, researchers at Minnesota University were able to predict already at age 3 if a child would drop out of high school with 77% accuracy. In another study, undergraduates at Harvard were asked to assess how close they felt to their parents. 35 years later, they were asked about their health. 91% of those who said they had a rather broken relationship with their mother were also diagnosed with health issues, including coronary artery disease, hypertension, and alcoholism. For those that had reported a warm relationship, the figure of poor health diagnosis was just 45%. But there is another reason why the early years deserve special attention. They are the starting place for subsequent behaviors. A kid that feels securely attached at age 2 can make friends at kindergarten. Their worldview gets reinforced with every interaction, and they develop optimism. As a result, they make good relationships at school, then at college, and later at work. Highly insecurely attached children can miss out on this opportunity. Psychologist John Bowlby, a pioneer in attachment theory, allegedly said, "What cannot be communicated to the mother cannot be communicated to the self." In other words, those who feel insecurely attached might not quite understand themselves. To get to know who they are and what they feel, they might have to go way back in time.
Fostering attachment and building relationships. You can do this by talking and listening to children respectfully, being sensitive to children's feelings, and validating children's accomplishments and progress, not just by saying "good job," but by telling the child what they did and describing it. When children work together to achieve common goals, they learn how to work as a team, support one another, and value and respect each other's thoughts and feelings. Educators can help promote this kind of learning community by planning projects children can complete in groups. So think about what kinds of projects you've had in the classroom that children could complete in a group. Perhaps you made a painting, a whole class painting or mural together. In class on Monday, some folks said that they had children act out stories together. Perhaps it's music and movement activities that you do together. To help children form friendships, model what to say to express interest in playing with others. You can provide scripts. A script is where you tell the child you can say, and then you give them the script, such as, "Can I play?" Provide targeted assistance when social skills make it hard to make friends. So if a child is wanting to make friends and their method is to run into the middle of the block area and knock everybody's building down, that's not going to work. You need to help them figure out how they can join the play situation, this play scenario. You can read and discuss books that include friendship as part of the story. You can coach children when they are working together on a task. So sometimes the children have gotten beyond joining the play scenario, but then they're not quite sure how to keep it going. So you've joined the block area game, but they're not really sure on how to give and take and read cues of other children. So this is again from 2017 study. A 20-year study examined the character skills of 800 kindergartners and followed them until the age of 25. For every 1 point decrease in character scores during kindergarten, it influenced if they would have a higher chance of spending time in jail, or their socioeconomic status, how much money they'd make as an adult. When children are having a difficult time forming friendships due to aggression or acting out physically, you can help the children by providing acceptable choices. And this is usually, you can do this or you can do this. 2 choices are quite enough. If you have a really good relationship with the child that's showing aggression, you can talk with them when they're calm and discuss, are you enjoying when you get angry? How does it make you feel? If they say they don't enjoy it, if it doesn't feel nice when their body gets out of control, maybe you can work together to figure out a way they can let you know when they need help calming down. You can never have a productive chat with a child when they're in the middle of an aggressive outburst or a tantrum. You need to wait for their mind to calm down and their body to calm down before you can discuss what happened. Now, you're always going to be protecting the other children in the room. That doesn't change. But being able to stop and discuss something needs a cool and collected mind. And form those relationships with the aggressive child so that you are seen as an attachment figure, as somebody they can depend on and rely on, and not as a threat. So when a child is shy or reluctant to join in play, you can help by observing them first and interpreting for the child what other people are doing in the classroom. You could offer specific suggestions of what the child could say to join the group. You could pair that child with another in the classroom who has a similar interest, or somebody that is really nurturing that can include them in their play without any conflict. And of course, observing the child to learn more about their social behavior so you can support them on that wheel of progress between one level of play to the next. Pro-social behaviors are voluntary actions intended to benefit another person. They require empathy, and they include compassion, cooperation, taking turns, generosity, being fair, being kind, helping others, and feeling and showing affection. What is empathy? Empathy is the capacity to observe the feelings of another and to respond with care and concern for that other. How do you currently help children develop empathy? All right. So we have 2 assignments this week. The first one is Competency Statement 3A. The reason we didn't do this one last week is because it requires us to think about the social and the social chapter. So there's the social, emotional, and here's the self-concepts. So it needs us to talk about both. So you're going to be using both chapters in your textbook for this reflective statement of competence. It is broken up into 2 paragraphs, and I've put this framework in place for you, and I'm going to send it to you like this. So, paragraph 1, what you are talking about in paragraph 1 is best practices to support social and self-concept skills. So again, your self chapter and your social chapter, best practices. This framework that I have here is completely made up by me, all right? So I think it'll help you in writing. However, when you go to turn it in, we don't need these words that I have highlighted anymore. Those need to be taken away. And then paragraph number 2, ways I support the development of children's positive self-concepts and growing social emotional skills in my classroom. And then here again, we have the bullet point from the book, supporting sentence. Bullet point from the book, supporting sentence. All right? Wonderful. So let's take a look. We did the first paragraph together in class on Monday. And so I'm going to share with you what the folks that attended on Monday came up with, what bullet points from the book they chose, and what page numbers they found those. All right? So I'm going to close this, and we're going to open So here is the example of paragraph A that we came up with in class together. So you're going to need your textbook for this. You can use the same bullet points if you like, or you can look up and find ones that you think are better. It doesn't matter to me. This is for you, all right? But let's go through this point by point. So for paragraph 1, we have a bullet point from the book, a bullet point from the book, a bullet point from the book. So 3 bullet points from the book. The first one that they found was on page 358. Please turn in your book to page 358. After you get to page 358, I want you to locate where this bullet point is on the page. Put your finger on it. It says, help children name their feelings. All right? Now, because of the way this is set up, after that bullet point, you need a supporting sentence. The supporting sentences we chose this week were why supporting sentences. So here, you could pretend it says why this bullet point is important. Okay? And they came up with, this helps children express their feelings more specifically. Naming the emotion helps with expression. All right, let's look at bullet point number 2 that was found. It's on page 396. Please open your book to 396 and put your finger on create opportunities for children to play and work together. Put your finger on it. I'm serious. Open the book to 396 and put your finger on it. Pretend I'm looking over your shoulder. All right, and for our supporting sentence again, think about why this bullet point is important. What does it do? So they came up for the bullet point with create opportunities for children to play and work together. Supporting sentence. This will help children learn from each other and establish friendships. And the last bullet point. On page 392, turn to page 392 and put your finger on talking and listening to children respectfully. 392. Okay, and to support that bullet point, why this bullet point is important, they came up with this will help form your relationships with each child and between children. Okay? So that's paragraph 1. Paragraph 1, the point of it is best practices to support social and self-concept skills. Let's now go to paragraph 2. Paragraph 2 is ways I support the development of children's positive self-concepts and growing social emotional skills in my classroom. So again, we have the bullet point from the book, and we have the supporting sentence. So the supporting sentence this time is how I do this in my classroom. All right? So you're finding things that you do in your classroom. Make sure you have at least one from the self chapter and at least one from the social chapter. So again, here's bullet point from the book and the supporting sentence, which is how I do this in my classroom. And then the third bullet point. And the supporting sentence, again, has to do with how I do this in my classroom. Your example, okay? I'm not going to support you on this aside from this framework. I know you can do this. I know you've got this. I'm now going to give you an example of how, once you have the paragraph written, what it needs to look like. So we have all this written for paragraph 1, correct? You need to now remove these things, this structure that I gave you. Do you see how I'm taking out the words bullet point from book and I'm removing the words supporting sentence? I'm taking those out. Now I'm going to try to string it all together. And I'm also going to take out the words paragraph 1, but I am going to make sure it's indented. Indenting is this space here that lets people know we've started a new paragraph. So let's see, these are best practices to support social and self-concept skills. First, help children name their feelings. This helps children express their feelings more specifically. Naming the emotion helps with expression. Next, create opportunity. There we go. Next, create opportunities for children to play and work together. This will help children learn from each other and establish relationships. And then the last one, finally, talking and listening to children respectfully. This will help form your relationships with each child and between children. So do you see how when you took out this structure, this bullet point and supporting sentence structure that I put in for you, how you get a lovely little paragraph at the end of it? All right, so that's paragraph 1. I want you to do paragraph 2 on your own or with a partner, and we'll read over them together when we get back in class next time. I believe it's March 1st. All right, well done. I'm going to send you the structure for this. So you might need to look at this part of the video a few times to see how to do it, and that is perfectly okay. Okay. So the next activity we're going to do is our social activity. So you know the first thing we need to do for an activity is to find the appropriate age objective. So I'm at the Texas Pre-Kinder Guidelines. I'm going to open that up, and we're going to look for something that looks like it has social domain. And looking at these options, it looks like the first option, social and emotional, is where we want to be. I'm going to click in there. And you'll notice the first one is self-concept skills. That's what we did last week. So we don't want to do that again. Self-regulation skills, that's something that we're going to talk over later, so we're not doing that either. Here we go. This is the sweet spot. Relationship with others. Here's our social stuff. All right, so for relationship with others, we have our end of pre-kindergarten year outcomes. The first is 1C1. Child uses effective verbal and nonverbal communication skills to build relationships with teachers and adults. They have examples of child behaviors, such as greeting the teacher in the morning, exchanging conversations with an adult, participates in developing classroom rules and routines. It talks about teacher strategies here. Ask questions to scaffold conversations with children. Remembers and responds to information specific to individual children. All right, so thinking what this could be for an activity would be maybe, child uses effective verbal and nonverbal communication to build relationships with teachers and adults. This, I think, is more perhaps of a small group activity or a one-on-one activity. And it's going to have to do with the child and the teacher having back and forth conversation about something. To have the teacher making those contingent responses based on what the child says. It could be talking about what the child did over the weekend. It could be talking about what the child did during playtime today or outside. This could be something that's done during lunchtime or snack. It could be done after reading a book together, that you all discuss it and talk about how it relates to your life. So those are some ideas for 1C1. Let's look at the next one. 1C2. Child assumes various roles and responsibilities as part of the classroom community. So, what could that look like? That could look like classroom jobs. That could look like putting different children in charge of an activity, such, for example, you have a music and movement activity, and you give the different children opportunities to be the leader. It could be creating a space in the classroom where children can post their artwork and they help you create that space and can put up their own artwork when they like. It could be doing something interesting for cleanup time. So those are some ideas for 1C2. 1C2. Let's look at 1C3. Child shows competence in initiating social interactions. So we have some ideas here. One idea is read aloud. The teacher reads aloud and discusses books where the characters deal with a variety of social situations. The teacher provides time, space, and materials to encourage children to work cooperatively in a large or small group. It could be setting up some new materials and making sure there's enough space for multiple children, and then the teacher hanging around that area to be able to support the social interactions. The next one is 1C4. Child increasingly interacts and communicates with peers to initiate pretend play scenarios that share a common plan and goal. So this could be, again, same as last one, where you put out new pretend play materials like doctor's office or hair salon, and then the teacher being around to model positive interactions and supporting those. It could be that You play with the children outside as they're creating a game and supporting them as they take the lead on that. The next one is child initiates problem-solving strategies and seeks adult help when necessary. So it has some ideas here, such as involving children in discussions about how to get their needs met while respecting others. Help children learn language of simple conflict resolution. And for that, if you're interested, High Scope does have a conflict resolution process. We're going to be getting into that more in the next chapter. However, that is something you could call upon if you wanted to do that. You could set up a problem in the classroom, such as maybe you tell the children, I saw a painting on the wall when I was downtown during the weekend, and somebody told me it was called a mural. And I'd like to do a painting on our wall in the classroom, a mural, but I'm afraid if I paint right on the wall that our custodian will be unhappy because they have to keep the walls clean. This is a problem. How are we going to solve it? How can I paint on the wall yet still be able to take it down when I'm finished? Next one, child demonstrates empathy and caring for others. What would that look like in your classroom? I see here that you can get children to volunteer for things. So an activity may be where they choose what they want to volunteer to do to help others. Maybe you read a book about caring for others and discuss how you can do the same in the classroom. The next one, with child interacts with a variety of playmates and have preferred friends. There's not really a specific thing I think you could do here. It talks perhaps about activities that have children discuss friendship through books and role-playing and puppets. So that could be something you chose. And then for the D section, the social awareness skills, child demonstrates an understanding that others have perspectives and feelings that are different from their own. So for that, you could find a book about perspective taking. One example of such a book is Two Bad Ants I think it's by Van Allsburg. Or you could have the children do perspective taking, for example, by getting down on really close to the floor and looking up and seeing how the world looks different from down there. You could do perspective taking by, again, reading a book and showing how different characters view things. I remember there are a variety of books like for the Three Little Pigs, told from the Three Little Pigs perspective, or the Three Little Pigs told from the wolf's perspective. You can do activities that promote respect for diversity, however that looks in your classroom. And this is the one they chose to do in class. They created a graph to compare and contrast children's preferences. And in class, they chose to graph favorite food. And that's it. Those are your choices. So 1D1, which is on page 44, 43, 42, 41, and 40. So 40 through, 43? Those are your choices. Choose one of these objectives, and you're going to put it in your learning objective section. Okay? And I always like to put what number it is, if it's like 1C2 or 1C3 or something like that. Okay? You're going to do your age group, which probably is 4. Your date of lesson, that could be today. So either do this by yourself or with a buddy. And I like to start with the step-by-step procedures because it helps you figure out your activity before you get into, okay, what materials do I need to do that? How will I introduce it to children? What kinds of follow-ups can I do? All right? And remember, on this section here, the adaptations for children with special needs, think about your classroom. Whichever activity you choose, is there a child in your classroom that's going to need some support with it? They don't have to be identified as having a special need, but do they need support? It could also be a child that's really precocious and gets ahead of things. Do you need to make something more complex to keep them engaged? All right? You've got this. You can look at your other lessons, your other learning experiences that you've done to see how to format it. I know you've got this. Take your time. If you get stuck, we can go over it next class. All right? But you can do this. I have complete faith in you. So have a lovely day, and I wish you all the best. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.